All right, so welcome for those who are going to arrive. Let's see what we get here. So, welcome to my house of mess. Well, I don't see it as mess. I see it as like colors. This here room is almost full. Space is almost full. I'm seeing hearts. What's going on with the hearts there? I think people are coming in, I guess. I don't know what that means. I guess people are coming in. So welcome as I just remove some stuff here. 1 second. Van die prullenbak. Okay. Oh, hi Brandy. Hello, welcome. I think you're working, right? So cool. All right. So I know I don't do this that often and not popular, whatever. I don't go for popularity. I just I don't know. I don't know how to name it. All right. So just for the sake of what this live stream is about, I'm here to kind of introduce a little bit about what I do. I basically use over 200 asteroids, centaurs, and dwarf planets. Mainly, most of them are asteroids. And what that usually means is that it's I don't know if we. Let me adjust the volume here. I think it's a little better. Okay, here we go. All right. So what that usually means with over 200 asteroids is that I go into so much detail that even I get freaked out. It's like, oh, crap. And what happened was when I was doing the research on each of them, well, it started off as like basically wanting to just work with extra stuff, right? I just like, okay, what's this gonna add? What's this gonna add, right? So I saw this one website. I think they closed it down, and what happened was they were just showing the general feeling of like, for example, one of the first one was that I saw was Vesta, and then Vesta was like, what's Vesta? Who's Vesta? Like I don't. And all they could say was like, "Jesus, this kind of thing tied to Kundalini, all that stuff." And I'm just like, after going through what several weeks of those kind of things with different asteroids, and then there was Amor, and then there was like things about this and all that stuff. I kind of just played around with it, and it's like, okay, I seem to be getting something out of it that resonates with me. Then for some reason, one day, or was it repeatedly in a matter of days or weeks? Was it? I forgot. I think it was 2023. And somehow, you get downloads, right? So people who get inspiration, all that stuff. I was told to be like, okay, do a bit of research on that. Go to the mythology and see what you get out of that. Like interpret it and put it in your words. Because somehow they were telling me that's how basic astrology was founded. They used the naming of the interpretation of what back then was one thing. Astronomy, astrology is one thing. How, like, say, what the sun represents and all that stuff, and who is the sun, who's soul, who is basically there's different names, like Helios, right? Had a different name for him, like that's Greek. That's the Greek side, and and then later came in mythology of Apollo, right? So all those things tied together became part of this mythology, and the mythology was interpreted into astrology, but also with a mixture of astronomical data, like what is this? The sun looks like it's made out of this and all that stuff. So, but more back then, it was 1,000 years ago. It was more like just interpretations of the actual. All they could do was find the math behind it. They didn't have much, they didn't have space travel. They didn't have astronauts or anything like that. Not that we know. Well, as in way before then, yes, I'm pretty sure. So they were also probably most likely given all these information about what that could mean what's like how to map it out. Um, but I would presume from on my end that they are most likely interpreting based on the data they got, rather than also including more deeper astronomical data like astrophysics, biophysics, um, paleophysics, like in terms of like the birth of the sun or something like that, or something. I don't know what it was. So the further we got in time, in the linear time that we live in this time, the more information we got from all those bodies, right? The sun, the moon, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, all the way to Pluto, and so on and so forth. Well, the basic ones. Back then, it was just only up to Saturn. And so what happened was they did this. But what I did was I said, there's all these other branches. They told me, I was being told, why don't you go look up the medical use of those, what that means medically, and what that means on medically, as in like in medical astrology. So medicine, health, all that stuff. And then there's also the mundane part. Mundane astrology is actually also called national astrology, which is like specific, um, you could say events, and also like the how a nation functions, or not necessarily a nation, but also could be places. It's tied to places as well. At least with modern mundane astrology, which, by the way, mundane astrology is one of the oldest forms of astrology. This is how they were able to predict certain things like events, because back then, especially just about thousands of years ago, or the last maybe 4,000 years, I don't know, royalty back then would ask astrologers or astronomers, astro people, to predict events. Will I win this war? So it's more divinational, if anything. And that's also where, when it became more personal, that's what you call horary astrology, or just horary, and question of the hour. So those are more the older stuff. Traditional astrology is slightly different from modern astrology. Modern astrology has branched out into other things like evolutionary astrology. Since we discovered, psychology, evolutionary astrology has become more like, it's not just the interpretation of what that meant. Went deeper into like shadow work, um, social, what's it called, anthroposocial or psychosocial behavior, like behaviorism, that kind of stuff. It's tied into that as well now. And then there's also locational astrology. So if you're curious about moving, um, someone, I forgot who it was. What was his name? It was back last century. There was this guy who decided, I think he was German. Was he German or Swiss? I forgot. He invented the astromap, and how it's tied to your birth chart, and what places based on your birth chart works well with you. That's just a general thing about locational astrology. It's called astrocartography, is the looking up the thing, but the whole discipline is called locational astrology. And then there's also love astrology or romantic astrology, relational astrology. Synastry is officially what it's called. I forgot what synastry refers to, but I feel like synna, like to sin, like to sync when you're syncing. Synchronicities, like synchronology, whatever. Chronos, like timing with another person's sync, like, anyways. um, and what else was there? What else is there today? There's also other stuff like the newest form of astrology today, I would say, is galactic astrology. We're going to go into fixed stars. So these are more stable planets, and what that does is, when it comes to readings, they don't move as much. So it's more, the focus is more how you are in this existence, in this incarnation, behave based on your galactic lineage, rather than just the earthly lineage, right? So your natal chart is more tied more towards so that's natal astrology, is the common one today. Everybody goes into natal astrology, right? That's where you start off with. Galactic astrology goes into like kind of like natal astrology, except way beyond. Um, and then there's what is that? Oh, natal astrology. I forgot that most people start off with natal astrology, but actually back then, in the past, in traditional astrology, they didn't start off with natal. They started off with horary. In fact, what they started was in typically today, what they do in natal astrology is like everybody does what's stemmed from what's referred to today as a pop astrology or popular astrology, where they go into, you go to the magazines and newspapers, this is for the sign, this is for the, that's pop astrology. It's super general. That's why some people question it, and you're like, I don't know, this doesn't resonate with me. What the heck does that mean? Because it's not personal. It's not tied to the person, but it can depend if it hits the mark, depending on where your placements are in your chart. Um, and then what was the other one I was gonna say? So that's what they start with, natal astrology. But also in today's astrology, most people start off with like the signs. In traditional astrology, they start off with the houses. The houses are more important because they pertain directly to your where in your life is it this thing is, this thing is, this thing is, right? So if you're hearing cracking, it's just my mold right here. Oh, that's a lot of files there. Okay, I'm just sorry. Um, distracted. 1 second. Okay, so there's that. Now, most astrologers do not use what's called asteroids, and I don't know why, but I think it was Philip Sedgwick or another astrologer who said he doesn't understand why you don't use asteroids because we people sometimes think, oh, it's too small. It's like it has, if it's not big, it's not important. Um, Viruses are powerful. They're tiny little things. So there's I don't know. There's no difference really. Um, so what that means astrologically speaking, or at least for persons who are people who are new to astrology, is that asteroids, whatever it is, even if it's asteroids or the luminaries are the sun and the moon, and then the main bodies, the personal planets, so Mercury to Sun all the way to Mars, then the interpersonal planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and then the generational planets or outer personal. Sometimes they call it outer planets, but actually they're more than that. They're generational planets, really. So Neptune and beyond. But then I feel like as we go into what's called the Kuiper belt, not the asteroid belt. That's where I work with. The Kuiper belt are where typically where the what's called trans Neptunian objects (TNOs). But that also includes the Kuiper belt object (KBOs). There's other names for it. So anything Plutonian and beyond. So, but it's funny because like all these things, all these astronomical namings and labelings actually have significance in terms of what that means astrologically. Like something simple as like Uranus. If you look at the rings of Uranus, it's not like Saturn, it's not like Neptune's. It's not like your typical rings where it's like right here. It's horizontal. Uranus is vertical. So that right there signifies its ability, or the part of us in us, which by the way, what all bodies in astrology represent, aspects of us in us. We all have a Uranus. We all have a Venus. We all have an Anus. Um, so they all represent something in us. Now, how this ties into what I'm doing, what I do with my work with asteroids, centaurs, and dwarf planets, is that I was told to go further into what that meant, base it on the mythology or the legends or the stories, and then interpret it based on that. And they helped me with the interpretation. Like, for example, when I learned Vesta, she was, what is it called? It she's when I did the research about her being, what is it? She's about um, she's embodied. She's not embodied. She's like just pure flame. So right away when I got that, I was like, oh, it's purity. But what other forms of purity are there? Isn't that tied to kind of virginity? Because she represents that kind of fireness, that passion. So I was like, I was I got this download. It's like, oh, it's something about sexual nature, but it's more like not just sexuality, but also sensuality, but also like our pure essence of like how much we give of ourselves and to ourselves and to other people. So she is tied to virginity in a way where it's not necessarily abstinence from sex. It could also mean that. It also means like just having respect and honoring and reverence for your own sexuality and your inner fire. Some people have said that she's tied to Kundalini, so I thought, well, Kundalini is basically life. When you're flowing with life, that's Kundalini. When you've awakened and you just flow with it and you're not doubting yourself, your true soul self, like the soul itself, that's it opens up. That's why people feel the whole like in Kundalini. I based on what I've seen, they say that it's like a snake sort of climbing. Da, da, da. That's the flame of Vesta that goes. It's embodied. It's also Uranus. Uranus also represents Kundalini because it's like the nervous system, like it's just kind of like yeah, or people who feel it, they feel it. I don't know. Maybe I've had Kundalini. I don't know. I'm not in a hurry to rush and get on with it. Get with it. So yeah, so that's my thing with asteroids. I work with asteroids, centaurs, and dwarf planets. I did my own research. But when I say also asteroids, by the way, it doesn't just mean like I'm working with asteroids. It means that when I am looking into a chart, I go into, um, sorry, that's the people upstairs. It's expected. They make noises upstairs. And for those who get bothered by it, fine. I can't do anything about it. I kind of just give it up and be like, fuck it. I'd be like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. It's nerves. I'm not trying to judge them. I'm trying to find the gifts all the time, but at the same time, it's fine. What do you call this? What was I saying? I distracted myself. So when it comes to asteroids or what I'm doing, which I like to actually call micro astrology. So because I was told it's like call it micro something. I was like, oh, micro, like microbiology. So it's like viruses and virology and little things like the mycelial network falls under microbiology. So I said micro astrology. So I thought, okay, that's very cool. Okay. So I coined that term now. Whether it's going to be popularized or not, I don't care. The point is like I work with microastrological tools which focus on yes the details of a reading, but it also means that there's a focus on going deeper into instead of just saying, oh, you have your Mars conjunct moon and that means this and that. Da, 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 da. But what does that mean? What else does that mean? Some people want sort of something tangible as well, right? Or people want to go into their health, or people have questions about finances, or people have questions about relationships. Where that's where the asteroids come in. It's not just the asteroid thing, but I also work with what's in Vedic astrology or sidereal Eastern, like in India. I use a concept called dwads. And the dwads kind of behave like the asteroids, where they go into, for example, if you have Mars in 5 degrees, 42 minutes, conjunct Moon in 6 degrees, 1 minute, something like that, right? They're conjunct. You look into, let's say, well, what's a better example? So, no, 1 degree, let's say Mars 1 degree Gemini, Moon 1 5 degrees, no, 2 degrees 42 minutes. What that means is that even though you have them conjunct and they're kind of like all the same sign in Gemini, what that means is that when we use the dwads, the 2 beyond the 30 minutes, or rather 2.5, is no longer Gemini, purely Gemini energy or archetypal energy. It goes into the next sign, which is Cancer. So they have a feel of both analytical and emotional to their initiative when they want to initiate something, when they get inspired and they get flirtatious and they share their emotions with someone. That's the moon, and their moods kind of swing back and forth. There's a big mix of the whole thing. But let's say we change the moon to something a little bit simple, like Neptune, Mars, Neptune, for example. Same thing. Neptune would be 2 degrees 42 minutes. The minutes make a huge difference because now it's like the Dwad gives it that detail. So this is the hidden art in asteroids, or what I like to call through microastrology, which is like going into the details. But a lot of times when people look into astrology, they're like, "There's so much work. There's so much work." Well, that's the fun part of it. You do it little by little. People want to rush things and idealize. I'm not saying that people do this intentionally, but there are people who have this tendency to idealize and perfect things, like to want to perfect something. They want to sort of like, and it's funny because right now the collective South Node is in Virgo, and Virgo represents perfectionism, the pureness, the virgin. But the shadow of it is also tied. It's actually both. It's tied to the North Node, which is in Pisces. So humanity is going through this like, I want things to be this way. It's kind of almost like this. It's almost like a residual energy or collective subconscious tendencies from the previous astrological age, which was the age of Pisces. So it's carrying on into this age right now, in the age of Aquarius now. So yeah. So, but the gift behind it is to just allow for things to be as they are when you get there. But Virgo does work with little things. Virgo rules little things. So little by little, maybe at the same time. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that people see about astrology. I don't know if it's something. I was told in a reading that it's something ancient, and just like ancient, because they were talking about ruins and all that stuff. I'm like, okay, because now I think about it, like, great. I got the reading. They were talking about they were getting sigils. They're talking about like a book or something like that, something ancient. I was just like, and right away I thought it was like more ancient. I think the person was saying, she said that it's like something astrology or something older astrology. She didn't want to assume, I could tell, but at the same time, I was just like, part of me was going like, actually, astrology is more than 3,000 years old, at least. That's how we see it. Because if you look at the ancient times, even back in Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, Babylon, they were using astrology back then too, and that's like over 6,000 years ago. Is it? I don't remember. Anyways, so yeah. So the point is, I don't want to. Oh, what happened to the deleted videos? Oh shoot! I deleted a video today that I didn't mean to delete. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay. Well, that's gone. That's fine. It wasn't meant to be. What was I talking about? Okay, so that's that. That's my work in astrology. Kind of long-winded. It's like 20 minutes explanation. Anyways, so I don't know if anyone is coming in to have a reading. If they want a reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys, I guess you can say, a sample of what's happening. I'm going to close that window there. Sometimes there's a part of me that goes like, because of my experience with astrology, I think there are people who get really frightened at how detailed it gets, especially, I'm tooting my own horn here, how detailed I get in the readings. And it's not really me, it's more like it's a mixture of what I'm used to, my past life experiences, parallel lives, and also how they're guiding me. So it goes into that type of detail. And then sometimes people get like how accurate it gets. It's just like, holy shit. Right. So, but there are people out there who do good, like they get scared from it's like, oh shit, you're reading into my soul kind of thing. And I'm like, well, Do you want the truth? Do you want to see the truth in this moment or not? Or do you want to see what you want to see or not? Because I don't know. And that's just my own thing. Okay. It's just to be honest, sometimes I wonder about, you know, I think we're being called to be honest with each other and not with each other, yes, starting with ourselves. It's like when I say honest, I mean like go deeper. That's why shadow work is so, I would say it's very important right now. Um, and it's funny because like Pluto in right now is in Aquarius, for those who know this. And what that signifies is because Pluto is the gate to shadow work. It's the gate to the underworld. So underworld, like deeper in our psyche. But when I say deeper, I don't necessarily mean deeper. I mean that's not exactly how I'm going to say it actually. So Bashar, for those who know Bashar, he was talking about how the subconscious is not actually sub; it is actually super, meaning super conscious. It's actually out there, and the way I see it is like this whole. Think of density. Think of this planet as like a dense blob of of combined matter. It's like I know we're getting into a bit of physics and science here. Think of it as like densified matter, right? But if you spread it out in terms of going back, and if you reverse time and you go reverse linear time, okay, you go and you go back, you'll see that the Earth was just dust. But tying that chronologically, not just linearly, but chronologically, and also materially speaking, you noticed. Do you notice that? Do you feel that when it's older, it's lighter? Wouldn't that make more sense if I said older? I mean lighter, more primordial, lighter, right? That's why when we talk about like expansion and all that stuff, like higher consciousness, we feel much lighter. So when we go into shadow work, it's the same thing. We actually go deeper, but actually not deeper. It's older and lighter, meaning like to why that happened in the first place. Right? There's a tendency right now for a lot of people I notice. I don't know if it's a trend or something like that. It doesn't matter. That people are trying to. There's this escapist flavor to it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really care. Um, that people there's a tendency, there's a sort of thing going on where people are escaping towards outer into the future and ignoring the past. Maybe they don't do it. Maybe it's not intentional. Maybe it is intentional. I don't know. The point is, we need to have both. We need to have integration. So I think it's really important, especially with the South Node right now for people, for the collective South Node in Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Chiron, it's integration. So, and I don't know, I feel it's really important, but I'm not going to impose. I'm just going to, you know, encourage, foster. But the way I see it is that with Pluto being in Aquarius right now, we are being called to go deeper into like what does this mean, right? You find the gold, and it's funny because mythologically, uh, what do you call this? Not just well, the Roman in Roman mythology, he was called Pluto, which actually is tied to another god that was tied to Plutos, which was tied to gold. So if you look at gold, right? Think about gold nuggets. Think about um, unearthing things. So that's kind of like that, which is actually funny right now because Osiris right now is conjunct Uranus. Osiris is Pluto. It's like an Earth. I call him Earth Pluto because he's like no, somebody else did that. But anyways, he's like an Earth Pluto. He's a Turanian Pluto. So he's working with the physical, working with matter, whatever here is in the third dimension, and digging deeper into the psyche, into like why do we have these certain fears? Why what subconscious behaviors are we manifesting? So that's why a lot of people are going into like escapist mode, anger, all this hyperactivity, you name it, it's all there. It's that crazy energy, which is funny because actually Osiris, I believe, let me double check actually. I think Osiris and Odin are in, I think they're opposition right now. Let me double check. Oh no, it's not. Okay, so Osiris is in Gemini, 25 degrees, sextile Chiron. There you go. So that's wonderful. So that's what I'm. So Odin is just opposite of Uranus right now. But Odin is that frenzied energy. Odin is all about getting more knowledge, but it's higher knowledge. It's tied to Sagittarius, which is super conscious, which really means that that's the escapist sort of thing. But because it's opposite of Uranus and the anaretic degrees of Taurus, it's like there's these sudden shifts, unexpected, could be violent shifts, but also tied to Venus right here. And Venus is right at home and it's in Taurus. Um, and so it's sudden shifts in, I would say, financial stuff. It's usually financial, banking stuff, money related things. Where these transits are in your chart, if it is affecting your chart, it's unexplained nervousness, specifically with ears, nose, and throat area. Also, the bit of the shoulders area right here. So if you feel like it's kind of like unexplainable, like pain here, maybe the nape, the neck right here. I believe that's also Taurus. Also tied to pleasure, anything with leisure. If you're feeling like, oh, I'm not feeling this, I don't want to eat this, that's kind of that too. Odin is retrograde, so there's a focus on that energy of getting to Sagittarius. If I were to look up Odin, so this is where I get into details. So if I were to look into my own research with Odin, yes, he's also about transformation, he's frenzied energy, but he's also about inspiration. Besides the agitation, all that stuff. Fury is also part of that, the anger I told you. Wit, being witty as well. True knowledge, or it could be excess knowledge as well. Integration. See, this is tying into integration of body with soul. He was extreme with the way he did knowledge, where he pursued knowledge. He was to his death. He literally gave up one of his eyes to be blind to get to see beyond that. So, what does that represent? Odin represents not seeing in a superficial way, like just seeing beyond seeing. So but that comes with, are we really escaping ego or are we integrating ego? As Bashar puts it, ego is the goggles, it's the mask, it's the filter through how we see reality. Right? That's the way the soul sees it. That's the ego. So, but sometimes I still hear this there where it's like, I have no ego, or you can't have ego. And it's like, you cannot get rid of ego. But what you can do with it is like the line from Doctor Strange says, Mordo, was it the character? He said, you help me defeat my demons. And then the ancient one goes, we never really get, we never can really get rid of our ego. We just learn to rise above it. That's the integration thing that she was talking about. Right? So integration is important. But the ego is just a filter. It's tied to survival mechanism. But it survives. It's kind of like Mars. Instead of what being angry is a result of not flowing with inspiration, not flowing with your sexual energy. Mars represents sexual energy. So if we're not, if we're suppressed or if we're denying ourselves the truth of how to work with a healthier sexual energy or sexual creative energy or inspirational, like action, assertiveness, that kind of stuff, right? What happens is it becomes anger. It's a cover up emotion. So when I say cover up, I mean it's not about lying. It's well, technically, kind of. It's just twisting. It becomes manipulative, right? Mars becomes manipulative. The Mars in us goes like, I'm going to manipulate this, or I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to hurt you, or we get into accidents, or we get into like, oh, I stubbed my toe, kind of thing. Something as little as that, but at the same time, yeah. So with going back to Odin here, what was this one here? He's also about possessions. So people are feeling like they're possessed somehow. That can be, yeah, part of that. Also, being misunderstood or being seen as insane, right? But these are the I'm seeing here. It says here, release from egoic traps and unrealities. So even though we're seen as insane, that's because two sides to that. Are we seeing ourselves as insane and labeling ourselves right away as insane, or is it more like this is my reality, and then other persons who's seeing us as insane, isn't that their reality of the moment? As Eckhart Tolle puts it, he's like, a person can only behave or act in accordance or according to their current state of consciousness. Meaning, not it's not really just knowledge; it's more like, so that's what Odin represents. It's not knowing. It's not about the facts. It's about this. It's like, oh, okay, I get it, right? So hold on. There's this holy minute. 1 second. All right. So there's a specific minute that I follow. Long story. Anyways, so Odin represents that as well. So he says here also embracing true power and purpose, integrity, some magic. It's also going to our heritage lineage as well. So I think if it's heritage, it's tied to Sagittarius. I would say like maybe foreign heritage. Maybe there are people out there who are going into like looking into where they come from, not just here, but also foreign as in like galactically as well. So that's fine. That's normal. But it's retrograde, so it's looking more inwards in what that means. Okay? And it's also definitely about being present. Okay? I believe that it is trying to, right now, it's trying to Neptune in Aries. So going into that, transcending the, what do you call that? Transcending the unhealthy ego's desire for wanting to be right, wanting to be powerful, wanting to be seen, that kind of stuff. And that's still okay because behind that, it's kind of like that child that cries. I've seen it before. I still see it. Was it about a month ago upstairs? There was this the child who was crying, but he was like anger crying. And the mother was just ignoring it. And I was just like, and then she did the complete 180 and she told the child to shut up. She didn't say shut up, but she just said like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" But I was just like, he just needs acknowledgement. He needs to be seen because all we really want is to be seen. That's what it is. We need to be seen. That's a basic need. That's one of the most basic needs. And when I say seen, I mean acknowledged, validated for just being, because the emotions will pass. We project onto others when we see extreme emotions. We go like, I can't stand that emotion, so I'm going to tell you to stop. But really, what it is what you're doing to yourself is when you do that, it's like, I'm going to resist that and say, I'm going to tell you to shut up, or I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to torture you, or I'm going to go dark here. Okay. So, right. So it's like, that doesn't work. All you're doing is you can kill a person externally, but what's happening is you haven't really dealt with the person inside. What we see in others is actually in ourselves as well. So I'm not going to preach here, but the point is that's what it is. That's what I'm seeing here um, with Odin as well. Okay, so it's funny because I mentioned the whole death thing here. Healing is part of Odin as well. When I say healing, as in the lost or grieving, so it's guidance through experiencing death. He's tied to the whole like what's beyond, right? It's also about crucifixions, hangings, beheadings, disembodiment. Now it's dark. That's part of it. If you're getting triggered by it, embrace it. There's a reason behind it. He's also about the death penalty, self-sacrifice, which ties in with the Neptune thing. Judgment, wars or battles. Okay. It's happening in foreign nations, like international relationships. It's in Sagittarius. So it's also about sorcery, magic, art, music, and culture. Poetry. Poetry is a common thing as well. Mm, prophecies. He talks about prophecies, sharpening your skills. So with it being opposite of, I forgot here, opposite of Uranus and conjunct Venus, it's honing our weirdness, you can say, honing our abilities to reform what we have inside us. But collectively, it's also, what do you call that? What was the word I just used here? Reforming. Well, reforming. It's really what it is. Sorry, I was just thinking of something else, but I was like, that's it. This could also mean that people are going to more like divination stuff, trusting their intuition. But because it's opposite of Uranus, Venus here, it's more like we have to integrate that part of ourselves that still wants some kind of pleasure, still wants some kind of ease, having a, you know, r- leisurely life and stuff like that. Even though things change, finding different ways, finding innovative ways to, and adapting to what's happening. But because it's in Taurus and it's in the last few degrees of Taurus, it's like, oh my goodness, people are getting stubborn. They want their own way and they don't want to change. But the more we resist the change, the more it's going to crack open and be like, right, just like, just explode. That's, yeah. So there you go. That could also means like it's just dying as well. Could be literal, could be figurative. Okay. Odin is also tied to mediumship, sources of knowledge, really, as well. So Akashic records, um, questioning whether the information we get uh, is regurgitated. Is it wasted knowledge? Is it leftovers? I mean, talking about the new world as well. People have been talking about this for like years now. Um, New world doesn't necessarily mean it's outside of us. It's also it's inside of us. I was watching this video posting by Ann Tucker and how the mother of creation told her it's like that you don't need to have the light. You don't need to have the light that's coming, this burst of light, like as if it's something external. It's already within you. The light is kind of just like a reminder. It's kind of basically tied to the mirror thing. When someone comes into your life and you find a gift within it, regardless of whether they are harming you or not harming you, or saying something or not saying something, because physically that when someone is going to harm you, you better just run. That's it. But if it's not actually harming you per se, like they're just saying something, but you get triggered by it, there's a reason behind it too. Finding the gold behind that. So this is what Odin is showing me, at least me, and that when we go into that whole that this beam of light that's coming through, it's already in us. The light just coming through is just going to be that mirror to us. That's going to be like, okay, are we ready for that? So when it does happen, the best is to ground yourself to be in that moment. Even if you're cooking, even if you're doing something, even if you're pooping, even if you're drinking, even if you're talking to someone, just be present in the moment and accept it. Because what's happening is the density that's we're used to before in the old world is actually, I did that by the way, because we seem to think it's like the old world will not be here anymore. It's like, no, it'll be here. It's just shifting our perception of it. And by shifting our perception of it, will it actually change? So um, what will happen is because of the density we carried, meaning the resistance we carried, the Saturn you created. Saturn rules gravity. I'm using Saturn as an analogy in this case, not somewhat astrologically. That when we carried so much baggage, so even looking at that, when you see carrying so much baggage, is because we've chosen to carry all that baggage. And whether we're doing it consciously or consciously, it doesn't matter. We're actually carrying it. So that's why we're headed towards what we call in Hindu context, in Buddhist context, what do you call it? We're heading towards more dharmic state of beings. That we do have a choice. I call this the age of choice rather than the age of Aquarius. The age of choice means Do you choose to integrate or do you choose to separate? It's not about the whole good and bad thing. There is like the expansive and then there's a constrictive. But learning from the constrictive, which is people call bad or evil, is actually going to help you integrate what that is. You don't have to succumb to that and start killing and massacring everybody in the world, because that's what happens when we go into what's called the dark side, right? It's not integrating. It's not integrating has nothing to do with like, oh, I'm just going to accept that and then I'll be bad whenever I want to. I'll be good whenever I want to. No, I mean integration as in learning from that lessons, right? So, anyways, I feel like I'm just repeating what most people are probably going to hear. But if you haven't heard that, great. If you have, great. Doesn't matter. So going back to Odin, he's also about caffeine. So if people are going through food substances like caffeine with caffeine in it, or things with caffeine in it, that's integrating that high energy. But it could also mean that maybe you need caffeine, maybe you don't need the caffeine. So it depends. It also could mean like mead and alcohol, so tied to unconsciousness, but literally also alcohol. So it depends. Odin is also about possessions, I said kind of earlier. Um, Ghosts and the paranormal, psychopomps, um, also tied to Germanic cultures and people. This one was funny how I discovered this, and I was like, oh, it ties in real well with my chart. So there's something about Germanic cultures, but that includes technically United States. That's a big one right now, right? Many of the cultures that are tied to the United States, a lot of them are Germanic. Even the history of France has Germanic roots in it. So I wouldn't be surprised that all part. You see what I mean? So it's not just literally like, oh, you mean Germany? No, Germanic, as in linguistically, Germany, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Faroe Islands, part of Scotland, places where history, Germanic cultures have embedded themselves into their history, Germanic things, anything of that nature. So that's pretty much a lot of the world. The British Empire going into India, for example, and parts islands, South Africa, that's part of that. Germanic languages speaking worlds, that's also part of that. So you can see how it's all tied to this one. Then you notice how I've been doing all this stuff. This is what I do. I go into details and stuff like that. And yes, it's kind of my own thing. That's true. But that's just why I do what I do. Like when I teach people, I don't teach microastrology yet. I could, but I've yet to publish my book, which is basically an encyclopedia. I don't know how I'm doing that yet. I'm not feeling it right now. I think it's more of a personal thing. Like it's more like readings and stuff like that. Because I find that a lot of people, astrology on its own is already a lot to work with. When I go into microastrology, it's almost like people sometimes perceive that right away and they go into this whole like, "Ugh, that's even more headache." Well, it depends how you see it, right? So, uh, but I feel like with microastrology, I don't need to go too deep into interpreting, because what I've gotten with the research that I've done, we're talking like now it's like over 900 pages, yeah, of single spaced research. But that also includes the mythology I put in there because I'm including it like the sources. I'm citing my sources. That's what I'm doing. Um, so with the work I've been doing with microastrology, it's how do I describe this? I don't need to go too much into interpretation because they were pre-downloaded. Because they came to me and it's like, do this, look this up, go here, go here, go here, go here. And I'm just like, okay. So I did that. And it's like, and it's after like about 2 hours of doing just only one, I started to get tired. Before I did a lot. Like, in one day I would just do two, but I kept going anyways. So it was kind of sporadic. Sometimes it'll be like one after the other, one day after the other, back to back kind of thing. Or there'll be times where just be like one a week or something like that. Now it's more like that whatever feels inspired. There's over like already 200, so I'm just like, I think this is good number. I'm still adding more, of course, and I'm refining some of the content as well. But again, depends on what they tell me. Like the other day, what was it they were telling me about how there's something about, what was that one? I forgot what it was. See, I forgot. It just came to me, and they told me to add it to this one asteroid. It's actually was Ceres, I believe, and it was Verona. Anyways, but there was a thing with Ceres, I think last year, when I was talking to some people, and all of a sudden I got this hit, just like this download. One of my guys telling me, "Look, portals, portals, portals. Look up Ceres," and it's just like I heard. I was like, okay, it totally made sense because of what I know about Ceres. If you know Ceres from the mythology, she is the Roman equivalent of Demeter, the goddess of hearth, or no, the goddess of the hearth, goddess of no, that's Vesta. Uh, Hestia Vesta. Hestia is a Greek equivalent. Vesta is the Roman equivalent. Um, Ceres, Demeter are the goddesses of farming. That's why you get the word Ceres, like cereal. I've yet to do the research on Demeter because the Greek mythology is darker than the Roman equivalents. It's just interesting. Like, okay, I find that the Greek ones are more they're more substantial. Let's just call it that. So, anyways, so Ceres is tied to portals because if you look at the mythology of how her daughter Proserpina, that's the equivalent of Persephone, kept going back and forth. But it's almost like you have a shift between the underworld and the earth itself, the surface. It kept going like this. So it felt like transitions or transmissions, or what the word, transportation. So Ceres is tied to transportation. That's probably something I should add in here. Did I put some? Let me see here. Gates, portals. I'm gonna put that in here. See, right there, right away. The moment I got that, here's something. Okay, write it down. Okay, so there you go. So I just updated my series list. So that's what happens. It happens. It just bloop, it just comes in. But anyway, so Ceres was tied to portals that way because of the mythology. So that was one. That's an example of one incident where I had to update, not had to, but updated my list with that asteroid specifically. What else was I talking about? Going backtracking into. Oh yeah, so Odin. Okay. And I talked about Osiris a little bit, how he's sextile to Chiron right now, which means that if we put the effort into learning more about ourselves, because story of Osiris, he's the god of the underworld. There's actually older ones before him, but Osiris was considered the god of the underworld because if you look at him, he's in the mythology in the drawings with the hieroglyphs. He's dressed in like he's wrapped, like he's like a mummy. He's like wrapped like this with the, I think with the ankh, and then there's the crook, and he has that king. So he is like Hades, basically. He's like Pluto. I said that already, Earth Pluto. So he's about transformation, regeneration as well, but he's more about assembly. So he's assembly, disassembly, reassembly. So he represents like crutches, he presents like replacement parts, even physical replacement parts, like when you have amputation, all that stuff. It's quite dark, I know, but he's about that kind of stuff. I would say, even if you look up Lego, I'm pretty sure Osiris will be there because Osiris is about like anything that goes like that you put together can disassemble and reassemble. So he's all about that. He's also about replacements. So anything that replaces something. Now he's more than just Pluto. And he's also about like having a loving support from like a lover specifically. Because when he was into pieces by his brother, Sethos, um, his wife Isis brought him back together. So he's tied directly to Isis, which is magic, patience. But Osiris is also tied to fraternal betrayal. Same with Sethos, or Set. Because I looked at Set and Sethos, and I looked at it in my chart, and I was like, oh yeah, that was my experience. But Seth is as I told my friend here, Randy, one time there was a post there. I mentioned that that Sethos is often misunderstood. He's actually an anti-hero. He's not a villain per se. But even if he were a villain, there's a reason behind that too, right? So Sethos rules deserts because he was cast out. He rules phallic symbols. It's very similar to Osiris as well. Both of them rule phallic symbols. And what is it? Seth rules. They're kind of like hot and cold, almost. I don't know. I wouldn't put it that way. But yeah, so going back to Osiris, people don't know this. Not many people know this. I don't think. Maybe I don't know. That the reason Seth did what he did to Osiris was apparently Osiris slept with Seth's wife. It's like, whoa, did we know this about Osiris? See what I mean? So see the complexity behind it, that Osiris, I believe, I don't know if the actual myth is that he was accused of it or that he actually did it. Either way, the myth, what I'm seeing here based on my experience, I think it's both. That he could have not necessarily slept with, I don't know. I don't know the exact story, but based on my chart, my experiences with being misunderstood or being blamed or accused for something, because I also have Desdemona, kind of like my North Node. So same with Osiris there and Odin. So Desdemona was always accused. She was accused of being like a harlot, when in fact she wasn't doing anything. She was just completely loyal to her husband, and she was there was planted evidence. So Desdemona rules planted evidence. So you see how all this is tied to what I've been doing with the whole microastrology. So the mythology or the story, in this case, Desdemona is a story. I think it's based off of Shakespeare's Othello, right? I think it was Othello. So Desdemona represents all that stuff. So it could be literal as well, but it could also mean that you're the accused. So any sort of accusations or the accused, the guilty as charged kind of thing, that's Desdemona. So I've experienced that a lot. Well, not some, well, yeah, 50-50, a lot for me because it felt heavy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something tied to that with Osiris. Could also be that it's tied to this Osiris through the experience he had with his brother. So, Sethos. So Osiris is that. Osiris is the underworld. Osiris is re-education as well. Uncovering, recovering, right? He's also about that. Deep wounds, yes. Ostracism, oh yeah. Chastisement, confiscation, yes. I've had those things before. Anything that's in your first house usually is general experiences in life. It's also what you plan to do, your endeavors. Osiris is also about doctrine, system, trauma, abuse, discipline, absolutely. Kings, rulerships, that kind of stuff, unconscious to conscious. So it still ties in with the Odin stuff, though. So disconnection, fragmentation, victimization, fratricide, or brotherly sibling betrayals. My brother's like that. He, yeah, he did all that stuff. Long story. Uh, he also rules shepherds, rams, herds, fertilizers. And this is one's a very interesting one. He rules vegetables. But then when I looked at my own life, back in when did I start becoming going to more veganism stuff? 2023 actually. There must have been some sort of transit going in there. I forgot what it was. Was it going to Leo and then into Virgo? I think there was a switch somehow. Like I started becoming vegan in 2023. When I say becoming, I mean the diet started changing even before that, where I started weaning myself off of animal protein, dairy, and then the last thing I was not consuming was honey. Um, but then I had to go back into taking omega-3, like fish oils, um, just last week because I felt I needed that, and then I needed omega-3 in my body. So I'm not fully vegan per se, but it's still vegetarian at the very least. So that's Odin, and it's actually my North Node. North Node represents where your soul wants you to head towards, especially when it's unknown, that kind of stuff. Mm, the male reproductive system is part of that as well. Near-death experience is an interesting one. I don't know if you could say I had a near-death experience, but I had pneumonia. Um, I don't know how that's tied to that. Pneumonia is the lungs, so I'd have to look that up. I don't know. Let me put that in my notes here. Question mark. When it's questionable like that, that's more of me doing it because it's not full. Like they're not telling me to do it. It's me going. That's pneumonia. I don't know, or maybe that's pneumonia. I'll have to look it up. But maybe depending on it depends on the placement, what sign it's in. So okay, going back to Osiris, he's also about zombies, mummies, zombieism or embalming. He's also about amputation. That's what I mentioned before. The John or Jane Doe's, so uncovered or recovered bodies, because that's what happened in the myth. They couldn't find him, but then Isis found him in this bed of what do you call that? Reeds. But then I looked into it. I was just like, oh, reeds. That's also reed instrument. I wanted to play reed instrument. I started with the clarinet. Later, I played the oboe. So you see how it applies, and I'm just like, so every time I did research on this, I was being reminded to go. This is your experience. Go with your experiences, but at the same time, interpret the myth based on what makes sense. Because it's both literal and figurative. So, it's also about cell division, cysts or lumps, skeletal remains, and bones. I don't know about that one. um, oh, bones. Okay, that totally makes sense. Not that totally makes sense because my Osiris is square my Mercury and Uranus, specifically Mercury, and Mercury rules the mouth. I never when I used to eat meat or animal protein. I hated food that was like bony, like ribs, fish that was like from the fish itself. I hated it and just like, please don't feed me that. I don't want that. Either I can eat the whole thing or just give me the meat. Don't give me the bones. It's just gross. I don't know. I just liked it. There's something about it that felt kind of like it's not complete. It's just I'm missing. It's like you're only giving me partial. It feels like that. It's like what? I'm all about all consuming. That's the Pluto in me. So I like all of it, all or none. I know it's extreme, but that's what resonated with me a lot more. Now it's different. Okay, so again, going back to Osiris, he's also about cell division, which is kind of makes sense. Um, I guess you can see cell division is kind of like having dry skin, isn't it? Right? Because that's sort of like a split. That's interesting. That's definitely what I'm putting here. That one's inspired. Dry skin, or they're telling me a cellular breakdown. Okay, that's cool. I'm putting that in here. Physical sensation, numbness. Oh yeah, I've had that before. Not just with not just through what I'm doing with cold showers, but I've had moments like where parts of my body become numb. What is it? I don't know what it is. Maybe there's something about the breathing when I do the Wim Hof method, the breathing part. When I got introduced to it, especially even now, there's some parts of it like I'm not really feeling that. But yeah, so yeah. Um, That's part of the process. That makes sense. Again, also replacement of things, removal or replacement of body parts or organs, body replacements, prosthetics, as I said before. Not that word, but something like that. Spreading of knowledge, teaching and teachers, right? That's good re-education as well. Re-civilization, restructuring. What's that? Delays as well. This one's also true. There's a lot of delays in my life. Traveling and education. It's totally true. Continuation of any type, cycles, being guided and protected, replication, mm, fragments, tools for beating or punishment. That's when my brother hit me. He used to hit me. Yeah, that totally makes sense there because it's tied to the fraternal betrayal. Um, Hooks, poles, clubs. Okay, those kind of things. Those are more literal. Roads and detours. Okay, yeah. Separating grains and seeds. Oh, I was told that. I was raised to clean rice before. Sometimes you have rice and you buy rice and then you get all these like little pebbles. It's like that's not pleasant at all. It's like you have cooked rice and all of a sudden you're like and you're like, ah, yeah. Um, Abusive environments, households. Yeah, that was totally yeah. That was my experience. Deviance, deviations. I'm just gonna update that a little bit. Rebellions, yeah, insurgents, separatism, social control. Yeah, yeah, I've had all those. Yeah, forfeiture, forfeited money. Um, I don't know. I've had forfeited items, like the teachers lost. The teachers go like you're confiscated, right? So there you go, confiscated, or they would take it. Lost and found. Yep, missing persons. I said that already before. I'm just gonna change to something. Where is this one? Here we go. I'm gonna move that up here. There's some when I organize my asteroids, I want the more figurative ones above and then further below it gets more literal. So there you go. So that's probably what's happening with Osiris. So right now, whoever it applies to, it applies to. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody's giving me anything about readings. No. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take it from here. No one's asking for anything, like, or nobody's here because I did just announce it yesterday, and they're just like, okay, last minute. I understand, but at least two people came, then one person came, and I had to leave. That's fine. Um, yeah. So I think what I'm going to do is, what was that? I did say that I was going to announce another day for this. I'm thinking maybe like Wednesday. I'm not sure if I'll make it consistent. Maybe I'll do Wednesday. I'll schedule one for Wednesday. Um, because to be honest with you, like I prefer to end my day with, well, actually, I prefer to end it with talking to my boyfriend. I like it that way. I don't want to end my day doing things that I don't want to do. I just don't want to do that. I'd rather start my day with doing what I have to do and then end my day with what I want to do. It's just more to me. It's just like, yeah, go to bed neutral or happy, or neutral, or where I feel like I've had my best interest met, if that makes sense. Okay. So, anyways, long story. Um, let's see. I did say, let me go back into what I said here. So there were no charts being read for any specific person. So I just did like a reading in general, what's happening today. Uh, and one second. And also, what did I put here? Oh, I didn't put it here. I did it through Meetup. Where did I go here? Was that taken down? Here we go. What did I say here? Offer readings. Okay, answering questions. Nobody was asking questions, so I just said that. Okay, so that's it. Yeah. So other dates would be 11/11. Yeah, I'll try for Wednesday, or maybe some give you guys notice. Although, to be honest with you, to I usually get invited to circles or specific, let's say mediumship or something like that, and it gets to me like last minute too. So I'm just like, well, that's not fair. So if they can do that, so can I. So this is the whole thing about the mirror thing I'm learning. So that's fine. I'll schedule when I'll schedule, and I'll let you guys know. Just stay tuned. And I think that's about it. I'm just going to end it here because I don't want to stay up during this whole thing for more than an hour. So I'm going to just. Okay. So if you have any questions, I think you can comment on the live stream below. And I think that's about it. Thank you very much for those who came. Thank you, Brandy. Hope you're having fun at work. Yeah, I'll see you guys later. That's it. Okay, have a good one. Bye. Thank you for coming, guys.